All right, it is Monday, but that's okay because I am behind the table with Alyssa Farah Griffin. Hello, Alyssa.
Hello, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. All right, this is your first time on since we had President Biden and former First Lady Dr. Jill Biden here with us. They were here Thursday for a big interview. It was even on a big news day with the new Pope being announced. This got a lot of coverage and a lot of people were talking about it. What were your takeaways from talking with them on and off camera?
Well, first, I was joking that I was like, it's a Catholic miracle for Joe Biden that we aired on the East Coast in full before we were preempted for the Pope. Very exciting. Listen, I was very honored that they chose us to be their first live sit-down interviews in his post-presidency. Listen, he's a very kind and thoughtful person, and this is now, I want to say, the third or fourth time I've met him. He remembers things like specific to the people he's talking to. Like he puts that extra step in. He and I had a brief exchange off air when he walked out, which I'll keep between us, but it just that he remembered something specific to me that I found very charming. This is my big takeaway because, by the way, I've never gotten more feedback on anything on this show. Everyone watched it. Everyone was covering the interview after. I heard from neighbors, friends, relatives. My big takeaway was he's clearly deeply proud of what he accomplished in office, and he doesn't want that to be in any way sort of surpassed by the noise around, well, was he too old? Should he have stepped down sooner? What was his cognitive state? So I really could feel that come through, that he is proud of the things he accomplished and wants to talk about them. He acknowledged a couple things that he hadn't said before, and I felt like made some news. I asked him the question about if he takes any responsibility for the fact that Trump won.
Yeah, that
and
was a great
he
moment.
said, I take responsibility. And both Sarah and I were talking off air. We're like, that hit us because it's been a long time since I feel like I've heard a politician say, I take responsibility.
Yeah, the buck stops here kind of thing.
Like that used to be sort of the rule of the road. So I thought that was powerful and poignant. I felt like he's also been really self-reflective in sort of this post-presidential period because he mentioned when he talked about the factors and reasons in which the Democrats lost, Kamala Harris lost to President Trump. He mentioned a lot of sort of strong feelings that people have coming out of COVID. And it was the first time I heard him say that, and it's something that I hear constantly. And he also talked about how a lot of incumbents lost around the world. And I think that there is still like some sort of collective trauma people are unpacking from COVID. They're still wrestling with decisions that governments made. They still feel like there are things that they feel like a lot felt so unfair from that period. And I thought that was interesting that he kind of came to that conclusion too, that played a role in it. Because I hear it very often, whether it was school closures, kids out of classrooms for too long, like just the state of the economy for too long after COVID. There's just this deep frustration that people still have from that era, even if he is responsible for ending the pandemic. That you could, it's kind of this double-edged sword that it's like, yes, but you also had to govern through it. And finally, it's always hard to ask people hard questions. Like, I'm not a journalist by profession. That's not like my training. I'm more of a, came up in government. But I did ask about his, accusations around his cognitive decline. And he hit back explaining that he did the job every day. What I would have liked if I got one follow-up would be knowing now, do you think you should have run for another term? Because that's kind of the open question. I didn't leave thinking this is a man who was by any means incapable of doing the job when he was in office. I think the question is, would 4 more years be too much? We talked about this. I read everything that's written about the show, good, bad, and out there. And I was kind of stunned by how different, varying takes on this interview were. And even people in my own life, or, talking to my mother, talking to my friends. I came away from it feeling similar to what you just implied. But I also walked away thinking, this is somebody who is not heavily cognitively impaired either. This is not somebody who I have to worry about. Did he know what he was doing? Was he governing or not? Was he, he was not a zombie. Yeah.
But then I read articles of people, and granted, a lot of it was skewed towards the right and Trump world. But just the idea that, he seemed out of it. He seemed like he was trailing off all the time and things like that. I thought there was a moment or two where he kept kind of going where maybe he should have tightened it up. But I also thought he seemed fairly sharp. I don't know.
And when he's talking about things he did, he has an excellent command of the facts. When he's talking about chips and explaining what it did, and he's talking about infrastructure, for example, he's clearly well versed in them.
Yes.
I also wonder if things read different than when you're at the table with someone and it's more intimate and you're like making eye contact. Because I noticed the same thing, that the takeaways were a little bit more extreme than perhaps I would have thought that they would be. But I think a lot is going to come down to, there's still more books coming out. I'll be curious if those break through, if Biden keeps being out there.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons he was here, is that he knows those books are coming out. Mm-hmm. He knows that his legacy is going to be assaulted.
Yeah.
And whether what he did on our show is going to be enough for him to point to and say, no, look, I was fine. I don't know. Probably it'll be, I think if you're inclined to feel one way about it, those opinions are going to be reinforced by everything you see.
Can I tell you my new favorite View moment of all time?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you hated it. It was the most viewed thing. We have the first interview in his post-presidency with Joe Biden and the former First Lady. I know
what this is.
And Joy was like, and I need to tell you about my play.
Yeah.
He sat there.
That was very View.
We can make things awkward in a way that no other show can.
Listen, Joy Behar was trained by Barbara Walters to plug no matter what is in front of her.
Always be plugging.
And always be plugging. And God bless her, she did it. And the Biden seemed, okay.
Yeah,
they were very polite about it. It was fine.
Yeah.
The interview was over. They were still there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'll be. That was very View. And
it was very interesting. And we should mention, he actually then stuck around after the show wrapped and talked to the audience
for 10 minutes. I mean,
it was funny. Like the level of staffing you have as a president and then as a post-president, there were just like a couple guys kind of watching, but like he really wasn't being like managed or people telling him. And you could see it meant a lot to the audience that they got extra time with him.
Absolutely. And I think, again, maybe my takeaway is all colored by those off-camera moments too, where he is very engaged.
Yeah.
He was funny. He was charming, and maybe that also reads differently in an interview setting. I don't know.
My strong belief is he has things he's very proud of. He has a strong command of the facts when it comes to what he did in his first term. I don't think he was up to 4 more years, and that's the decision he ultimately made.
Right. Former First Lady Jill Biden also made a lot of news in that interview, especially coming off of the question about how he's doing cognitively and the books that were coming out. She got very defensive and a little mama bearish in the moment, which God bless.
By the way, I can't hear the word cognitive without hearing it in Trump's voice. Cognitive. Like, we're doing cognitive.
Sure. Camera, man. He started to answer that question. He trailed a little bit, or he took a second to do it, and she jumped in, which I don't know did him any favors in that moment.
From a communication standpoint, I would have avoided that. She listen, let's be totally fair, the former First Lady, she's clearly very defensive of her husband, rightly so,
as my wife would be for me,
as anyone's spouse would be. But I do think that narratively, I think it played into this notion that she had to step in and finish something for him or help him out. And it reminded people of after that debate, which she actually talked about, where she got on stage and kind of was this hype woman. It's a totally natural thing to want to do, but I directed the question to him because I thought it was important that he be the one to address it.
It's funny that one of the headlines that made me chuckle was, have you seen the Dr. Jill Biden gives secret sign to cut off Joe or something? A secret signal? I mean, there was no secret signal.
I know. No, and then I saw a lot of on more the fringy right, but what a softball interview. And I'm like, you guys, that was not a softball interview.
It was not. There was nothing.
I asked him to his face about his cognitive decline. You had, very tough questions to the former First Lady, but it's always easy to armchair.
For the record, there was nothing off limits. There were no questions given in advance.
Oh, no, I changed I wrote all my questions with our producer. They went through a lot of iterations, but there were no guidelines on it.
No, that was a straight interview. There was no teleprompter for him to read. That's the other thing I keep seeing. It's really crazy.
Well, and by the way,
conspiracies.
I always go into these interviews with politicians. I think people think that people do gotcha questions in journalism all the time. Yeah. I'm never interested in that. I'm always asked the questions I write because I genuinely want to know their answer to it, not because there's some setup to get them to say something or whatever. And I just wanted to note that because then on the left, I saw it was some kind of a gotcha question. I was like, no, I just genuinely wanted him to respond.
No, I don't think they were surprised by the line of questions at all. I don't think there was any setup or anything.
No, it would if they were unprepared for any of those questions, that would be unusual.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, we've been talking a lot about the kind of old guard with the Bidens, but there's been a lot of headlines about the future of the Democratic Party. It's something we've talked about on this show. And this new wrinkle to it has been David Hogg stepping into leadership. Kind of explain people what this story is and what you make of it.
So David Hogg's now the vice chair of the DNC, which is, it's a ceremonial role. You never even would have really heard who the person was.
But it was a little shocking when he got it.
But he's obviously somebody famous, an activist, a Parkland survivor. He's out on TV a lot. And he basically announced that for the first time, I believe in the history of the Democratic Party, that the DNC is going to get involved in primarying sitting Democrats. And he explained the rationale for it as if, you may be voted for things that the base isn't in support of. And the takeaway is that they want people who haven't voted enough in line with the party to be primaried by people to the left of them. Now, I watched a very interesting debate that he had with James Carville, who's more of an old guard,
Sure.
Louisiana
he is the
Democrat.
Old guard. I mean,
he is the old guard. And I couldn't help but totally agree with James Carville. Listen, I love young activists who get into politics. They are the future. David Hogg is the future of the party. But majority makers, the people who are going to make Democrats win back the House of Representatives, are not left-wingers. It's not AOC in New York who's in a D+30 district. It is a moderate in a swing district who's able to beat a Republican. And that's what he's missing there. To me, it's honestly political malpractice to primary Democrats. As Carville said, he wants to beat Republicans, not defeat Democrats. And people forget this. It reminds me, honestly, of the Republican Party and kind of the Tea Party era and leading into Trump, where it became more about purity than victory and actually being able to get people elected. So it's created a lot of tension with folks. And I think of, a Bernie Sanders and AOC, those people always will have a place in the party. They're sort of keep, the progressive flank happy. They're kind of the voice to those people. But you need people who can beat Republicans in swing districts. So I think of like Alyssa Slotkin, who won that Senate seat in Michigan. Those are the people that you need to be investing money as, because those become the most expensive races, and they're the ones that determine the control of Congress.
I guess the devil's advocate there is the idea that people like in AOC or in Bernie Sanders are the ones that are actually firing people up and getting people out to the polls.
They are, but if you try to elect one in a district that's going to change the makeup of the House, they're just not going to win. It's just simply the case. And I'm trying to think of like what some of these House districts that are swingy, like Mike Lawler, who's just like north of the city. That district switches basically every time. It was my friend Mondaire Jones, and now it's Mike Lawler, who's a friend of mine. It's always a centrist Democrat that wins, or wins, or a centrist Republican. If you ran a Jamal Bowman, who actually was just a district down, he lost there, they'd never win. A Republican would win every time. So it's just knowing what districts you represent and you have to have moderates to be able to win majorities, which is kind of the whole game, because I think most folks think Democrats have a very strong chance of taking back the House. I think that's the expectation, is there'll be some sort of a swing in response to Trump. The Senate's is still a very tricky map for Democrats. So they really need to focus on winning swing districts and getting their numbers up. Sorry, if I may go off on this a little more.
Yeah, of course.
People love to hate on Kyrsten Sinema or Joe Manchin. Oh, they're squishes. Oh, they kind of are practically Republicans. But you lose those two people, and actually Ruben Gallego ended up getting elected in Arizona, who is a Democrat and a centrist. But West Virginia, that Senate seat is lost to Democrats probably for a decade. Like, you may find Joe Manchin, if you're like a left winger, to be not what you want, a little too squishy, but he's still more likely to vote with you than a Republican in that state. So I get very frustrated on the right or the left with the like purity politics over like, how do you win votes and actually like win, the majority.
So a lot of people are looking at what David Hogg is talking about, and it's more of an age-based thing, but you're saying it's really more of
the way he described it is it had to do with how people were voting in Congress. And he actually said it wasn't about age, which is interesting, because I'm all for, I used to be involved. I used to be involved in a group that was specific about recruiting women and like the next generation of Republican women. And that I'm always for. Like, I think getting new blood in as you deal with new issues is important, but I don't believe in like partisan ideological tests to do it. By the way, if you're an outside group, if he wants to stand up a like super PAC of his own to primary sitting Democrats, he has every right to, but using the infrastructure of the Democratic Party to spend money to beat Democrats rather than Republicans just seems like a bad use of resources.
It was a really big newsy weekend, but one of the more interesting things that happened, I thought, President Trump appointed Fox News host Jeanine Pirro as the top prosecutor in D.C. What did you think of this move? Were you surprised, not surprised?
I was mostly surprised because I assume she's got like a multi-million-dollar deal at Fox News.
She's a star at Fox News.
Yeah, and I would get it if it was to be attorney general or FBI director, but to be a district judge, like she's already, I believe, been a judge of some sort before. She's held some position. I think there's probably a rumor mill going that maybe she was looking for a soft landing. I don't know.
Like she was leaving the Five.
That's what I wonder. Was she leaving Fox News? Because I don't know many people who would walk away from that for this specific position. But it just, again, it shows like it's the TV cabinet, it's the TV judges, and he really makes his decisions based on who he likes on television. The SNL sketches are great already, though.
Yes. Yeah, here it is. So Pirro was elected as judge of the Westchester County, New York Court in 1990. In 93, she was elected to the position of Westchester County District Attorney. She's the first woman to be elected to either of those positions.
I mean, that's cool. She's done it in Westchester. Mm-hmm. Now I guess she'll do it in D.C.
Yeah, I mean, that was 35 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know.
Maybe, I mean, yeah, it's... I don't know. I don't know what I think of it.
Yeah, I mean, well, there you go. All right. Speaking of Fox News, there was this terrifying viral clip of Fox News panelist and former Donald Trump staffer Cameron Kinsey having a medical episode live on the air. But what stood out to a lot of people was that the anchor, Jonathan Hunt, just kind of continued the segment.
It was, you saw this, right?
Yes.
It was bizarre. I'm glad she's okay.
I think they were talking about our show, actually, when it happened.
I think they were. I saw she gave an update and she's fine, but it was very scary. She just disappears and he just continues to the camera to basically say like, and we're going to be right back. Like, it's okay to have some humanity on television and to we go off script all the time, like by nature of our show.
All the time.
Like literally all the time. But I just can't imagine not first making sure she didn't hit her head or like making sure like checking on her. Like someone in the control room can say go to commercial. Like I mean, I don't know. Maybe I would think that if something like that happened, I would be immediately responsive to the person sitting next to me. It's like it's taking the show will go on too seriously.
That's what I was thinking too. It's like, you hear about stuff like that on Broadway or something like that.
Yeah.
But, well, thank God she's okay. Do you know her at all? Is that someone?
No, she doesn't ring a bell. But
Oh,
glad she's all right. Yeah, if I ever pass out on set, please don't just like keep the segment going while I'm laying there.
No, I'd have 4 cameras on you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know that I'd go to commercial, but I'd make sure you were taken care of. All right, so this is exciting. Forget all the other news of the weekend. We had an announcement on Friday. We are going to be celebrating 2 seasons of Behind the Table with a live... I'm calling it an anniversary gala. I don't think anybody else is, but a live giant...
All the people talking about it are calling it that.
Yes, the Behind the Table spectacular gala 2nd anniversary. This is very exciting. It's going to be another live event. We did one at the beginning of this season.
It was so fun.
It was really fun, and it's going to be here in the Disney headquarters, which is exciting.
Is it in that big
theater?
Oh, that's
it's going to be great. And it's sponsored by Blue Nile.
Nice.
One of our favorite sponsors.
Beautiful.
And it's going to be on June 3rd. Tickets are going really fast. We announced this, and suddenly we had hundreds of requests. But this is important to me. I want Behind the Table listeners to join us. This is important. So we got, in the episode description today, we have a special code, a special link just for Behind the Table listeners to make sure that you guys can get in if you want to. So it'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk about God knows what, but it'll be hosts. It'll be me. And answering questions, talking about this crazy season we've had here.
I love it. We've had such a wild season.
So lots to talk about and a lot of fun to be had. So and sponsored by Blue Nile Diamonds Jewelry.
Yes, their stuff is so pretty.
Yes, I've requested to be outfitted by
Yes, exactly. Please deck us out.
Yes, I'd like you guys to be decked out. I'd like a large cufflink of some kind or something. I don't know. We'll work on it. Maybe a brooch, a diamond rose or something. I don't know. But that'll be very exciting. So check it out and come see. It'll be June 3rd. And that's all the time we have for today.
Great.
But thank you for joining me today, Alyssa. Tomorrow, I'll be back with a special Tuesday edition of Joy Behar. Very exciting. And we'll talk to you then.